Cool. Let me know when you're ready, Leah.
It says it was successful.
Okay, so now you're going to go up go up a little, and you'll see where it says record. You're going to hit that, and you're going to record to cloud.
Okay, I see it live now on YouTube. Great. Record to the cloud.
Did you hit record to cloud?
I did.
Oh, it says recording.
All right, so I'm going to start my video, thing over here, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. All right, we'll turn it over to you, Sue.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, as chairwoman of the Environmental Sustainability Task Force, just want to welcome everyone to the public hearing today on the draft aggregation plan for the Community Choice Aggregation Program. I'm first just going to quickly recognize the other task force members who are here today, and then tell you how we're going to go forward. The other task force members who are here right now, pardon me, we have Amelia Rose, Katherine Van Amberg, Julian Drix, and Vadakumba. They're all here today. And I also want to recognize the Director of the Office of Sustainability, Leah Bamberger. And we are first going to kick this off. So just so folks know what we're going to be doing, we're going to hear about a 15-ish minute presentation from the consulting team who's been working with Providence to create this draft plan. After they do that, we're going to run through and ask each of the task force members if they have any additional comments or support they'd like to share. And then we'll open it up to comments from the public. And I'll run through kind of how we're going to do comments from the public when we get there about how to raise your hand and how you'll be called on and things like that. But just so you don't forget between now and then, because people might join, we'll run through that process in about 15 minutes. So I'll kick it over to Leah and the consulting team to take us through the draft plan. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sue. I'm going to hand it over. I just wanted one other comment. If participants could just rename their names to include your pronouns, that would be great. The little dots over if you mouse over your picture, you can add in your pronouns. Appreciate that. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Good Energy team under Patrick. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Leah, and the members of the task force. So my name is Patrick Roach. I work for Good Energy. We're the consultant helping the city develop and implement the Community Choice Aggregation Program. I'll give a short overview of the program as it's outlined in the aggregation plan, and then we'll get to the public comments. So to kind of set some background here, if you're a resident or business in Providence, your electricity bill has two parts. You have a supply portion and delivery, and supply are the sources of electricity, whereas delivery are the wires and the poles that get the electricity to you. And for most of us, National Grid sources the supply for us by default. But what we're talking about with community choice aggregation is having the city of Providence choose where the sources of supply come from. And the bill would still come from National Grid. We'd still get one bill. They would still take care of all the wires and the poles, but the city and the community gets to choose where that electricity comes from. And there are a bunch of benefits that could come with that, such as using more clean energy or maybe getting better pricing, which we'll talk about more today. So how did we get here? Well, the city council voted in favor of creating the community choice aggregation program, and then the mayor signed on to that. So then the city started working with Good Energy and a group of 12 community advisors to develop the program. And what we did is we developed a series of videos that provide information about what community choice aggregation is, and then a survey to help get input on that. And we really worked with the advisors to develop those videos and the survey to really help try to reach frontline communities, in particular, groups that are often lower income or minority populations that don't often participate in these processes. So we really focused our outreach to try to get a wide, diverse group. And we'll talk about some of those survey results today, and they're also posted on the Sustain PVD website. So that resulted in the draft plan that is before us today and that we're having the hearing on. In terms of what comes next, the public comments we get today will be considered and incorporated into the plan as appropriate. And then the city council will have an opportunity to vote on and hopefully approve the plan. And if the city council does that, then it will move on to the state's Public Utilities Commission for approval. And that's really the sort of final approval step. Once we're approved, then Providence has the option to go out to bid for electricity. And what's nice is the city's never under any time pressure to do this. Once we're approved, we can look at the market and decide when is a good time for the city to go out to bid. And then once we do go out to bid, if we receive a good bid that matches our goals and what the city's trying to accomplish, then we can launch the program. But if we don't receive good bids, we can wait and go back out to bid later. So we're probably looking at this point, we might realistically be launching a program in 6 months or a little longer than that. So now we'll talk about what's in the draft plan. First off, the plan is organized under the jurisdiction of the city council. So the city council oversees the entire program and makes all the decisions about it. For the day-to-day management, that's going to be done by the Office of Sustainability. And Good Energy as a consultant will work with the Office of Sustainability to help do that. The Office of Sustainability will be bringing any suggested program changes or amendments to the City Council for their decision-making and approval. And they'll also be reporting to the City Council on program progress. So it's going to be a very sort of transparent and public process, the way that the program is implemented and managed, and lots of continuing opportunities for public engagement. In terms of the goals, the program is going to try to achieve a number of different things. So first, the program is going to have a lot of buying power because it's going to be taking all of the residents and businesses that are on National Grid's supply today and pooling that buying power together. And so we're hoping to leverage that for really competitive electricity pricing that will hopefully have some savings. The other thing is that we can get longer fixed rates. So National Grid's supply prices change every 6 months. They often spike in the winter. And with the city choosing the supply, they can get a fixed rate for a year, 2 years, or even 3 years. Then, of course, the city can also choose how much renewable energy it uses, and that can go above and beyond whatever the state requirements are. And the city can expand choices. So in our program, we don't have to have just one electricity choice. We can have multiple choices to offer a number of choices to residents and businesses. And finally, all this sort of works on supporting the growth of energy democracy, trying to bring decision-making about the energy system, and in this case, the electricity system, to the community and to the people who make up the community. So if you are a resident or business, what can you expect with this program? Once the city selects a supplier, then we're going to launch an extensive education effort, and that will be advertising what the price will be as well as the other components of the upcoming program. And anyone who's receiving standard offer service from National Grid, so if National Grid is your supplier, you'll be eligible for automatic enrollment in the program. And that will be automatic enrollment in the standard product. So as we mentioned, the program can offer multiple products. One of them is going to be the standard. And if you already have chosen a different supplier than National Grid, you won't be automatically enrolled, but you'll have the option to join if you'd like. So if you're curious, is National Grid your supplier today? You can take a look at your electricity bill. So the bill has the two parts we talked about earlier, delivery and supply. And so supply is circled there. And if it says supplier is National Grid, then the National Grid is your supplier and you would be eligible for automatic enrollment. So, typically we find the vast majority of residents and small businesses still have National Grid as their supplier. And our survey supported this. So what we found, you see here is those in orange say National Grid is still my supplier, and it's broken out by different household income brackets. So vast majority of our respondents were still with National Grid. As you had higher income brackets, you saw a few households move to another electricity supplier, but generally the large majority of our city is going to be with National Grid and eligible for automatic enrollment. So when we launch this education and outreach program before the program begins, we're going to be making sure that everyone knows they have a chance to opt out and not participate in the program if they don't want to. So you're not under any obligation to participate. You could stay with National Grid, or you could go to another supplier. So you'll have that option. And then even once the program starts, you'll be able to opt out without penalty at any time. So you can leave whenever you want, and there'll never be a penalty. The other thing is that you can always choose one of our optional products at any time too. So if you don't want to be in the standard or want to be in one of the optional ones, you can switch over there at any time. And as a reminder, National Grid is still going to handle all the billing. They're going to handle all the maintenance of wires and poles. And what's really nice is if you get any credits for solar or say net metering, or maybe low income discounts, those are still going to continue with this program. They won't be affected. So in terms of the actual products that we're going to offer, the plan has a standard product, and that's the one for automatic enrollment. And in the standard product, that goal is going to be to try to provide some savings compared to National Grid, while also increasing the amount of renewable energy. So we're going to be trying to hit both of those goals. And what we think right now is that we could probably hit 10% extra renewable energy. And for reference, the next year, the state standard will be 17.5%. Everyone has to have that amount of renewable energy. And we would be adding 10% on top of that for about 27.5%. So while 10% might not sound like a huge amount, that's a pretty big increase on top of the state's minimum, and would put the individual household about 6 years ahead of the state standard. So it's a pretty meaningful. And then of course we have optional products. So we have 3 optional products. We'd have a basic, which would just meet the state's minimum standards for renewable energy. And that would be a good option for people who want to try to get the most savings possible. And then for those who really want to be climate leaders and use a lot of clean energy, we would have a 50% renewable energy option and a 100% renewable energy option. So all of the extra renewable energy above the state standards is going to meet the Rhode Island new standards, which basically mean it has to come from New England or be able to be fed into the New England grid. And the city is going to try as much as possible to source as much as possible from Rhode Island itself. So that'll be the goal. And to go back to our survey, these products were really developed based on what we saw from the survey. So we asked respondents about their willingness to pay for renewable energy. And what you see in the chart here are the responses broken out based on whether the household had under $100,000 in household income or over. And for those who were under $100,000, we saw the vast majority indicated that they would like some extra renewable energy if they could pay about the same that they pay today. And that's really what our standard product is built to do. We want to increase the renewable energy to a point where we'll be close to what National Grid would be, hopefully still have a little savings. And you could see that for those who are over $100,000 in the red, there was a lot more willingness to be on the far right to support all 100% renewable energy, where you'd be paying a premium. So that's where having those 50% and 100% options are really important for those who want that and can afford that as well. So really thankful to our community advisors who helped us design the survey and did a great job getting out in their communities and getting responses to it. That was really helpful. And that is where I'll end the overview.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. So for folks who've just joined, just want to reintroduce myself. I'm Sue Anderbaugh. I'm the chairwoman of the Environmental Sustainability Task Force. I also want to quickly recognize she had to leave, but Councilwoman Castillo was here, but I'll still recognize her. And Task Force member Jesus has joined as well. And I also, before we start with comments, want to remind folks if they can update their names. If you just hover over your face, like on your little box, you'll see a little box with 3 dots. It wasn't enabled before, but it's been enabled now for you to change your name so you can add your pronouns, so we don't accidentally misgender anyone as we're calling or having discussion. So the process here is I'm first going to ask for comments or thoughts, questions from the task force members, and then we will call on members of the public. And the way that we're going to do that is for members of the public, and Leah, jump in if I get this wrong at all. If you click on the like where it says participants on the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to click a button that says raise hand. And so if you have a comment, you can raise your hand, and Leah and I will call on you, and then basically in the order that you raise your hand, and I'll monitor that as best I can. But we'll call on everyone, and Leah will unmute you. And when you are unmuted, we'll say your name so you're being called on. You'll say your name, where you live, so what neighborhood you live in, or if it's not Providence, you'll say what town you live in, and then share your comment. Pardon me. Share your comment. We're just asking people to keep their comments to 5 minutes or less if possible, just to respect the other people on the call. So I'm first going to start with, and we also ask that you keep your comments relevant just to the community choice aggregation plan that we just heard about. If you're here to talk about other issues, this is really not the forum for that. And so we also reserve the right that if you talk about something else or you express any sort of hate speech or anything like that, if this is not the time to do that, and we will mute you. And so with that, I first want to open it up to any comments from other task force members. And since I can't see you all on the screen at once, I'm just going to call your name. And if you have a comment, you can unmute yourselves because you're panelists, and please share it. So I'll start with Amelia.
I do not have any comments or questions.
Cool. I'm just going to go alphabetically. Katherine?
Hi, this is a really exciting plan that I think is really wonderful for the level of choice that it gives to people, to just opt out if they don't even want to think about it, to all the way of paying a premium for 100% renewable. The focus on cost savings is important and good, and I appreciate the level or the thought that was put into making this an equitable plan for the city of Providence.
Awesome, thanks, Katherine. How about Jesus?
No comments directly, but glad to see that there was able to be more folks to get more data from. And that's it.
Thanks, Jesus. How about Julian?
Hi, I think this is great. I'm glad to see this moving forward. I've been hearing about it for a bit, as we all have on the ESTF, and so glad to see it move to this stage and support it. Getting implemented quickly as possible. We need to be moving to 100% collectively as quickly as possible. And I think this is very much in line with the climate justice plan that the city has, and which I very much support. The one quick question that I have thank you for the great presentation summarizing something that can get pretty complicated pretty quickly and doing it in a very clear way. I appreciate that. Question was in terms of people who have chosen some other supplier and kind of what the communication would be around that. I know that there's been a lot of kind of the people who go door to door and get you to sign up and given people's not too positive view of National Grid. And a lot of the times, I think a lot of people might have just sign up for that just because it seems like an alternative to going with National Grid. And I know it's been really confusing currently of how to go about changing that once one of those door-to-door people kind of signs you up for it. And so just wondering what the communication would be once it does go to implementation in terms of making sure people know that they have a choice to be able to do this, and that this isn't another one of those kind of other options, but this is a kind of a real official positive thing for the community, and how to make that clear to people, make it easy to change over onto this.
Yeah, that's a great question. And also before I answer that, I just want to let people know, also from my team, Jamie Rhodes, and from Green Energy Consumers Alliance, Priscilla de la Cruz, who are both Providence residents, also are here to help answer any questions if we need. And we're very instrumental in in developing the plan. So that is a big concern for us when we launch these programs. We really want to help make sure we differentiate this in the messaging from those people who knock on the doors or are sending mailers or calling you. So actually part of the survey was we were getting input from community members about what sort of messaging and symbols really spoke to them about that said, sort of City of Providence supported. And we really want to do all that we can to be consistent with the city's branding, their seal, logo, so that things really look like they're coming from the city and that it's really like a city program. And then the other thing is that what we want to do is make sure there's messaging that to let people know if they're on another supplier, they can join, but we want to help them make sure they need to check out the cancellation terms or any early termination fees that they might pay, because we wouldn't want them to get hit with a $50 or $100 termination fee to come join the program. So it would be the kind of thing we would I think advertise the support number and have some resources online as well, so that people who are in that position can have a kind of a clear path for what the best way for them to get into the program would be.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Julian, do you have any other questions? Cool. Vadik? See, you are on mute, so I assume maybe you stepped away. So I will come back to him later. Oh, are you there, Vadik?
I'm right here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. I appreciate the presentation and everything as well. And I know you mentioned that you all were going to be looking to source as much energy sources in Rhode Island. Do you all have a cap on that, like a minimum of how much is in Rhode Island?
We don't have a cap in the plan right now, but I might ask Priscilla to jump in because I think we're estimating that with around the 10% mark, we can source all of the extra renewable energy from within Rhode Island to start.
Yeah, that's a great question. So far, from the green energy consumers standpoint, we feel pretty confident that we should be able to source from projects here in Rhode Island. So we'll just have to let the process play out. But I think with the proposed plan that we have, we think we could be pointing at projects that are right here in the state and continue driving that demand for more local renewables.
Is there any advantage, I guess, in like doing this work moving forward to put some sort of a cap? Like in 50, 20 years, like could people change it and say we don't need to source it in Rhode Island? Or is it like in the law? Is there anything that's like codifies the approach that you all are taking?
Yeah, right now the plan specifies at a minimum that it has to meet that Rhode Island new standard. So it could really be, in New England or connected to the grid. I think ultimately the plan can evolve and be changed over time. So I think this is what we've tried to do is develop a plan that, allows some flexibility for us to be able to hit kind of all the goals with including the economic goals. But over time, that could definitely be something that is added as we try to, really ramp up or be more intentional even about the local renewable energy.
All right, thanks. My last thought, I appreciate the time and the answers on this. My last thought is there a way to track like health benefits or any of those type of things as it connects to this work?
Well, I think that's something we can think about more. One thing certainly can be that this could be maybe in educational materials is we do have very good numbers about, per megawatt hour of electricity in New England, what kind of pollutants are associated with that. And that we can, be able to make estimates about based on the impact of the program, what kind of pollution levels we may be avoiding. So I think we can certainly there are some numbers we can bring to bear for that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Badek. I'm also just going to add how excited I am about this program. I didn't want to kick off the comments, but I think it's really exciting that Providence wants to do this. I think we hear a lot of goal setting around climate change in Rhode Island, and Providence is actually just like doing it and like, making real change and allowing customers to go up to 100% in a really easy way, but also making base level of 10% while also weaving in all of the work that they've been doing on climate justice and racial justice. So just really impressed, and also pointing out that this isn't like revolutionary. Like Massachusetts already has this in a number of their cities and towns. So it's not like we're working out kinks and bugs, like it's a tried and true program. And I'm glad that we have a really good team in place. So I'm excited. And that, we're focusing on New England first. And so it's not, just buying cheap Rex from Texas or something. So I think this is really exciting, and I'm really excited to see it on the city council agenda for tomorrow. So I'm really hopeful that they will go ahead and pass it. I am going to open this up to questions for the public, questions or comments. And it looks like we have 2 to start off. And again, remember, please say your name, say it clearly. So I would say Sue Anderbois, so we can hear who you are and what neighborhood you live in, or if you're not a resident of Providence, what town you live in. And then keep your comments relevant to community choice aggregation. So the first person who raised their hand is Analia. And so if Leah could take them off.
Yep, so I will unmute as Sue calls on folks, and you'll be unmuted. You will not be on video, but we'll be able to hear you, and we'll affirm that we're hearing you. And then we will keep the comments to 5 minutes. So I will unmute Analia right now. Analia, oh, here we go.
Nope, she got or they got remuted. Oh, there we go.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Patrick. Thank you for all your effort. Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm very excited about this.
Analia, please say your name and where you're from.
Sure. My name is Analia Alcolea, and I live right in the edge from Federal Hill and West End.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'm very excited about this opportunity. But I always say the same every time we had an opportunity to meet. And one of the things that really, really, really concerns me is like Providence has amazing, beautiful buildings, but they're old, and well, that's the beauty of it. But the thing is, like, they don't have isolation. So the energy of wasting, a lot of heat during winter time, it's an incredible amount of money that we have to pay. So I do plastics on my window, but I always suggest if there is any that we can do tips for clients, in order to save money, because it's not only that we save money, but also it's to save energy, because the more gas or electricity or whatever we use, the more we have to produce. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a whole chain. So I think we need to start right from the beginning, right from the basic, how to save energy by having all windows. And of course, that is also a lot of money to change for some of them. Like in my case, we depend on our landlords and they don't want to change it. So maybe if we can give tips or provide a service, or I don't know, that's my point. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And that is so important. I'm just going to agree with you that energy efficiency and not wasting energy is definitely a really important thing. I do know that National Grid has energy efficiency programs. They can be tricky for people who are renting if landlords don't want to make those investments. So would love to make sure we're sharing tips and advocating for folks who live in rental properties. Leah, did you have anything to add?
No, that's it for now. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It looks like the next person to raise their hand was Christian Roseland.
Thanks so much for taking the time to talk about this. I actually have questions.
Christian, please say your name and where you live.
And I live on Hope Street. So first off, I'm a little unclear about how this is working here. Is this an opt-in or opt-out program? Because I feel like it's been described a couple of different ways. Will Providence residents and businesses be automatically subscribed to this program, or will they need to take action to join?
So I can answer that. This is Patrick. They will, if they are on, if they're getting their supply from National Grid today, they will be automatically enrolled unless they choose to opt out.
Okay, great. Also, I'm a little confused about the nature of the prices here. When I read this, my understanding from reading the program's default option is that this would be done at a rate lower than what National Grid pays. But I've heard it described a little bit differently on this call. For the default option, the one that people are automatically subscribed to, will that be priced? Will we be paying the same amount for the electricity that National Grid is paying, or will that be allowed to rise to slightly more, or will that be mandated to be less?
It's a good question. So the goal will be that we're at about the same cost as National Grid, hopefully a little bit lower. So hopefully there's some savings. The reason I say goal is that when we go out to bid, we'll only know National Grid's price for the next 6 months, and we won't know what their price is going to be the month period after that, or after that, or after that. So we're going to try to work with the city to set the amount of extra renewable energy at a level that we think has a really high probability of being total price being at or below what National Grid's rate will be over our contract term. So that will be the goal, and but there will not be any guarantee that it will be lower.
That's great. I actually support there being some flexibility for this to be slightly higher in order to procure the renewables, as that may be important, particularly if the renewable energy is located in Rhode Island, which has higher costs. Yeah, I just finally wanted to support what Analia said. I think she made an excellent point that one of our big problems is energy waste. I know that other community choice aggregators have worked in additional energy efficiency programs for residents. And I think that could be particularly meaningful for low-income residents. And obviously within the larger design of a CCA, there is that option. Is that something that this team has looked into doing?
So I'll start that so right now we're envisioning not including that for the initial program, but over time it could be something that's rolled out. I think, as the chairwoman mentioned, National Grid does have a strong program that is actually paid for as part of the delivery portion of your bill. So we'd be looking, I think, to not necessarily or to sort of support that and help advertise that, but we could definitely engage in conversations about how we could do more or how we could go beyond. But at least for the initial kickoff, it's not envisioned.
And I can add to that, longer term, or even hopefully even sooner than that, we do hope to explore those types of options for the program. Given that the PUC, this is new for Rhode Island, new for the PUC, we didn't feel like it would be a good move to initiate the program with those sorts of added bells and whistles that could complicate matters at the PUC. And we want to get the program off the ground, up and running, and then build on a good foundation so we can work towards additional programs associated with it to work towards our climate and energy justice goals.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I've
Christian.
submitted additional written comments, so.
Awesome. Thank you for submitting comments as well. It looks like next on the list is Kai Salem. And just as a reminder, please say your name and where you live.
Oops, I think I hit the wrong
button. Kai, do you mind raising your hand again? Thank you. I'm a rookie here. All right.
Cool.
Hi, this is Kai Salem. I live on Dexter Street in Providence. You might know me as the policy advocate at Green Energy Consumers Alliance and a policy chair at the Environment Council of Rhode Island, but today I'm speaking just as a Providence resident. I have been eager to see community choice aggregation, especially green community choice aggregation, brought to Providence since I first learned about it 3 or 4 years ago now. So I'm really excited to see this plan coming to fruition. As a Providence resident, I would be willing to pay more for green energy, like many people in Providence. I already do. So it's great to see that such a strong plan, and one that is so grounded in equity and the climate justice plan, and in trying to get more renewable energy to people of Providence, is being presented. So I wholly support it, as do many of the people I've talked to.
Awesome. Thanks, Kai. Great. It looks like the next person with their hand raised is Martin. And remember, say your name and where you live.
Hey there. My name is Martin. Sorry, I don't have video, but my name is Martin and I live in Whelan Square. I was just interested in kind of how you think this renewable plan is going to match demand. I can't remember the name, but it's the company that brokers the power deals between different New England power agencies. And I was just wondering, basically, do you think this is going to match future demand or help spur that, or do you think additional action will be needed?
Sure, this is Patrick. I can start. The real goal, is that it is going to help spur demand for future renewable energy. And the basic kind of premise there is that the state requires everyone to have a certain amount of it, and that amount goes up every year. So there's this sort of natural incentive already for the amount of renewable energy to increase. And if the city of Providence is voluntarily purchasing of a lot more above and beyond what it has to do, it's increasing that demand effectively even faster and even more. So that's our hope, is that this really does have a meaningful impact on spurring development of renewables in the region.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Patrick. And just as some context, so the state's renewable energy or electricity goal taps out at, like, I'm forgetting if it's 35 or 40%, but where the current law sits, like, it increases by a percentage point every year and taps out in like the mid 30s as a percentage. And so that can be increased at the state level. It hasn't yet. But where the current science tells us we need to be is that at least 100%, maybe even more toward like net zero by 2050. And so anything that kind of increases that demand, and Providence is between 15 and 20% of the state's population, is going to help drive demand. So I'm really excited about that. It looks like, sorry for my little editorial, but just adding on some little extra excitement about the need to drive demand. The next person with their hand raised is Debra.
Hi, I'm Debra Adekunle, and I live around Chalkstone. I wanted to say that when we first looked at the data for the first survey that we put out, I wanted to say that you guys were like eager to like spread it more because the representation wasn't what Providence actually looked like. So I want to say like thank you for that. But also now that we have gotten like the data we want and we're moving towards implementation, how would you guys continue to make sure like that the low-income family minorities always like have the chance to get this information? Because the first time it wasn't really easy for us to get it out there. We had to do extra work. I want to ask like how you guys will keep that practice on so that those people that actually represent Providence can get the data and be a part of this decision. Thank you.
Leah, would you like to start with that, or I'm happy to jump in?
I was going to suggest that you start with some of your experience elsewhere and building upon what we've already done, and I can come in.
Sure. So yes, and Deborah, thank you so much for your help with those surveys. Well, I think, first off, I think we learned a lot through that process of getting those surveys out there, and I think we will leverage that as we do other outreach. And so I think that's very important. The other thing is, in the plan, attachment 2 has our sort of initial education and outreach plan. And what we really want to try to do is connect with local groups as much as possible. And those might be groups who are supportive of the program, or it might be groups that target specific demographics that it might be harder to reach. And that could be for language barriers or other reasons. So I think we'd like to, and we do this with other communities, is really try to connect with those groups, give them information that they can make available to their members, or they can direct them, to us. So I think those are some ways we really like to make sure we connect. We focus on connecting with those populations.
Yeah, and I would just add that the plan does outline a little bit of the outreach strategy, but that's something we would continue to want to really shape with community, with the folks that were involved in helping us get the survey out. So to continue that process, build on, as Patrick was saying, what we learned and how we reach folks. But there will be a lot of outreach, mailers, social media, advertisements, phone calls, you name it, to make sure everyone's aware of the program. We'll make sure that's accessible in various languages, and really, tap into our community resources like we did in this beginning process to develop the plan, to ensure that we're reaching everybody.
Awesome. Any other questions, Deborah?
No, thank you for your response. No questions.
Thanks. It looks like the next person with their hand raised is Seth.
Sorry about that. I didn't unmute myself. Hi, this is Seth Handy. I live in Fox Point. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Quickly, I'll say that I am a huge supporter of the program. I'm very grateful for all the good work that has been done on the plan, and I'm super excited about its implementation. It's a great way to scale our access to renewable energy in Providence, and to lead the state actually in this initiative in ways that are super important. So I'll start with that and say that I've already submitted written comments, and I've already had a conversation with the team about them. So I appreciate that as well. And I just want to say that I'm excited to see the bid documents, and to ensure that the bid criteria value more than just price, because there are a lot of things that go into the value of renewable energy, and particularly local renewable energy, that aren't reflected in price alone. So I hope that we'll have criteria that are broader than just price when we're selecting a final supply. For instance, Rhode Island-based renewable energy creates important jobs and has other benefits, including reduced reliance on our transmission system, which is one of the most expensive elements of our rates. So if we can use renewable energy to drive prices down, ultimately we'll all be in a better place, even if it costs a little bit more upfront. So I guess along with that, one of my concerns was just about whether the bids were seeking a sole source supplier or more than one source of supply. I think it's really important to have the flexibility not to just go to one large utility scale supplier, for instance, but to have the opportunity to look at maybe a portfolio that supplies, so that we can get a range of benefits out of that portfolio and not just a low price. So that was another element of that. And I guess the the more local we are, the better. It just proves itself out in so many different ways, economically and otherwise for societal benefit. So, and the last thing I'll say is just a question. Has the team relied on national models in order to develop this plan and to learn about how to best implement it here? I'm pleased that Providence isn't the first town implementing it, and I'm sure that across the country it's been implemented a lot, and I bet there's a lot to learn from examples elsewhere.
Yeah, thank you, Seth, for those comments and questions. With regard to the last question, we have been, I've had numerous conversations with my counterparts, specifically in Massachusetts, where we have a very similar utility structure. So I've learned a great deal from them. And then also other parts of the country where they've done different innovative practices to really, there's a whole kind of report that we've been looking at called Community Choice Aggregation Plus, which speaks to a lot of those add-on bells and whistles, energy efficiency programs, perhaps some other add-on programs that could help make our shift to a more just energy system as well. So those are all things that we're exploring and constantly learning from.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. I don't see any other hands raised. If you do have a question, oh, great, another hand was raised. So Hank.
I'm not a Providence resident, but I'm with an organization called Acadia Center, and our offices are in Providence. So I just wanted to take a second and thank you all and say that we're supportive. I think this is a great move for Providence, definitely demonstrating leadership, and just good luck and thank you for all your efforts.
Great. Thank you, Hank.
Thank you.
It looks like Judith Platz has her hand raised. And remember to say your name and where you live.
Hello, I'm Judy Platz, and I'd like to know how many people are on this call.
Sure, we have 13 panelists at the moment and 14 attendees.
I didn't hear?
27.
Yeah. We have 13 panelists and 14 attendees.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, that's all I wanted to know, and I'm glad you're doing this.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Judy. It looks like we have a hand raised from a phone number, and the phone number ends in 789. Are you there?
Hello?
Hi, can you say your name and where you live?
Good evening, Grant Elgarian. I live on Exeter Street in Providence. And I want to commend you guys for making an effort to attack one of our many environmental issues that we have to deal with. And it's only been 50 years since Earth Day 1. You would have thought that we would have had most of these issues solved by now, but oh no, not the case. I want to echo what a couple of individuals have mentioned regarding reducing the amount of energy that we use, wasting energy, unnecessary energy usage. And one of those uses that could be diminished are billboards, illuminated, digitized, rotating, light up the night sky billboards that besides consuming energy, also contribute to visual pollution and distract drivers. Lamar Outdoor Advertising has been trying for years now to get around our zoning ordinance, which says very explicitly, and has said this now for over a decade, quarter century, billboards are non-conforming signs because they generate an economic disadvantage to local businesses. If you're a local business and you want to put up a sign, where your business is established, you can have that sign only so many feet high and only so many feet wide, so many square footage altogether. And that dimension pales in comparison to the billboards. So the city decided in its wisdom back, 20, 30 years ago that Lamar Advertising could keep all the billboards they own, but no more. No more enhancing, no more enlarging, no more upgrading, no more, no digitizing, no more, none of this rotating stuff. And Lamar has, with the idea that there's billboards that are in our zoning ordinance are considered non-conforming signs. And the idea is that over time, the non-conforming signs will just fade away. As land becomes more valuable, the billboards will disappear and buildings will appear.
Yeah,
the land will get
I'm
improved.
going to just quickly interrupt.
And-
Excuse me, sir. So we're asking that comments. This is really important, and I hear all these concerns, and they're in the public record. But we're asking for comments specifically to the community choice aggregation plan. So if you had comments about that, and I heard the initial comment about energy use of the billboards, and that's really important. But if you had other comments specifically to community choice, that's what we're aiming for this public hearing.
I understand that. I hear you, and I'll just take 2 more minutes, and then you can determine whether you think that this is, part and parcel relevant or not. The reason I'm mentioning it at the hearing today is because there is a proposal before the City Council tomorrow. Lamar Advertising is saying that, they will trade in X amount of square feet of static billboards on local roads and streets in return for being able to illuminate, digitize, rotate Jumbotron billboards on the expressway system. And so that's why I'm mentioning it tonight, because it's up for consideration by the full council tomorrow. And besides the fact that it's a lousy idea, Lamar Advertising is proposing the wrong denominator as far as suggesting it's even Steven. Square footage is not the appropriate figure, the number that should be used. It should be average daily traffic, ADTs, how many eyes are going past the billboards that they're willing to give up versus how many eyes are going past the billboards that they want to illuminate, digitize, and rotate. I use just as a comparison example, the expression that if a tree falls in a forest and nobody's there, doesn't make a sound. And so I would encourage everyone, if in the same perspective that we're trying to use our energy as efficiently as possible, is to just get in contact with your respective council person and respectfully request them to just say no. Vote it down, or at the very least, refer it back to committee because it needs a lot more review and study than it's gotten so far. And so that is my request to you all, and thank you very much for the opportunity to communicate that to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that comment. It looks like no other hands are raised. I'm just going to pause for a second in case anybody's trying to frantically raise their hand.
Sue, could you remind folks how they raise their hand as well in case they missed that piece?
Yeah, so if you missed that piece, to raise your hand, there's on the bottom center of your screen, there's something that says participants. If you click on participants, you'll have the option to click a button called raise hand. And then we can see whether or not your hand has been raised.
And sorry, so is there a way for people who are just on the phone to raise their hand?
Yeah, so the gentleman who just spoke was just on the phone and they were able to raise their hand. And that's actually the only phone-only call we have currently listed as an attendee. There's only one phone in.
Thanks.
Great point. Great, so seeing no hands raised, I'm just going to quickly look back at the other task force members. I can see almost all of your faces. Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to make? Give me a little wave if you do. I see absolutely no movement. Awesome. So I just want to thank Leah, the team from Good Energy, Priscilla from Green Energy Consumers Alliance. This was a really fantastic presentation, and also a big high five and thank you to the members of the public who came to share their thoughts and their comments. It's really important that these get baked in and are considered. So thank you all so much. Since this is just a hearing, we don't need a vote or anything to close out the meeting. So I will just, unless Leah, you needed to jump in at the end to add anything.
I was just going to wrap up with next steps.
Perfect.
The council will be voting on this tomorrow evening. In the meantime, we will be with Patrick and Jamie and Priscilla and my team, making sure that we respond to every comment that we get, and that will be presented to the council with the plan. So you can still submit written comments if you haven't already. We've gotten a handful throughout the day today. But please send them this evening or first thing in the morning. That way we'll have ample time to review and incorporate them. Not ample time, but we'll get to it. And there will also be other opportunities for public input, as Patrick stated. So there's a bunch more steps before this program comes to fruition. This is one important one that allows us to move forward. So we will look forward to the council's vote tomorrow. And I hope you all stay engaged in this process. Feel free to reach out to me directly, or council or Chairwoman Debra, and we'll keep in touch. So thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, and more opportunities to engage. So thank you so much. And we will officially adjourn.